Good evening. Happy sparkly Saturday evening. Tonight, Constellations presents Bright Stars, Dark Skies, a powerful online poetry event that promises to challenge and transform perspectives around social justice, drug use, and pleasure. Tonight's event has been curated by poet Reid Medusa and brings us a unique offering of 6 award-winning, internationally recognized spoken word artists who will light up the virtual stage, sharing witty, raw, honest masterpieces guaranteed to leave you with plenty to think about. We couldn't be more excited to have this session at Constellations. Before I hand over, a brief word about our incredible curator, poet and scholar, Reid Medusa. Reid has lit up the UK poetry scene since 2009. Her mainstream debut, welcome, was her Manor Laws, which was featured in Sky TV's Vox Africa channel for Black History Month in 2010. After 5 successful years of undergrad and postgrad studies in public health and global health, Reid has continued to storm the world of spoken poetry, using the world of spoken word, using her poetry to advocate for Black and brown women and other disenfranchised people. Reid, I'm so sorry, let me go on just 1 second more. In 2020, Reid headlined a multitude of online events. Her Women in Lockdown haiku was chosen to feature for Live Talk's High Flu series, and her collaborative piece Here to Stay went international, published by Vogue, Forbes, Grazia magazine. Reid has a passion for health and justice and has an upcoming monthly podcast focused on her love of Black authored literature and writers. And I am so pleased to hand over to you tonight, Reid. Thank you so much for being with us and for your beautiful work curating this evening.
Thank you. Oh my goodness, Naomi, that was so lovely. I'm humbled. Sometimes you hear all that back and you think, oh my God, was that me? It was. Best introduction I've ever had. Thank you so much. It is truly an honor to have been asked to curate this. I am really, really fortunate in that I know some of the best, most established, most these people challenge ideas and injustices in their own unique ways, and they've inspired me, they've mentored me, they've taught me so much. Some of them are new, some of them are grassroots. We've got, I think everyone here has gone international in some way, shape or form. So thank you for joining us this morning. This evening, wake up. Before we get into it, I just want to issue a trigger warning, a general trigger warning. This is going to be poetry that may have themes of substance use, some abuse in there. There may be mentions of sex, there may be mention of trauma, and of course I know we are all adults here, but I think it's wise to just give everybody the heads up on what they may or may not hear this evening. So with no further ado, I'm going to introduce our first poet for the evening. She is internationally recognized flow poet, being mentored by a Grammy award-winning woman. But that aside, this woman on her own stands her ground. She's a dear friend of mine and also somebody that I would call and refer to as a mentor in many ways. And without any further introduction, this is the one and only Miss Yankee. Hold on to your seats.
Thank you, Reid. Thank you, everybody, for having me. I'm going to get straight into it with a piece that explores the relation. It's a love story. We'll leave it at that. Reid's given a trigger warning already. It's called The Rose That Never Grew. As kids, we used to listen to Me Against the World and smoke weed around the round table, setting the world to rights and sharing dreams. I wanted to be a poet, and you? All you ever wanted to do was rap, be bigger than Pac. As your fingers crushed buds, my heart skipped beats. You were my secret crush. Oh, I fantasized that I could one day be the Bonnie to your Clyde. Your perfect green eyes were red. They were so fucking red, but they were wide. You were sweet and shy. As your luscious lips licked wet mango blunts, I couldn't help but blush. They were your favorite flavor and you were mine. That summer was the best. I Just Want to Sing was pretty much on repeat, and every time track 11 played, we'd lock eyes and share a secret smile. That track was us. And for a while, I really thought that we would flow forever. We used to talk deeply, daily. But daily soon became weekly, and weekly became monthly, until suddenly it was rarely. Oh, I heard the rumors, but paid no mind. They said that you had lost your mind and could not find it. They labeled it schizophrenia, brought about by a drug-induced psychosis. How the fuck did I not notice? You locked yourself away from reality. I missed you. As your memories fragmented, you no longer trusted me or anyone. Your thoughts went to war with your emotions, and our friendship was just one casualty. As you fell to pieces, so too did my heart. You started scaring people, becoming unpredictable and violent. I knew you must have been frightened. Delusions fed your confused state. They said you were dangerous. You, my mate, the gentle giant. They locked you up and pumped you full of drugs. I didn't know what to do or how to help. I tried to reach you, but you had already traveled too far into darkness and could no longer see my light. We used to speak with passion and fight. But as time went by, you died inside, and I selfishly mourned the loss of our friendship. Your shattered dreams left me with lacerations, wounded and filled with anger. I'd listen to DMX on repeat. The Great Depression saved me from depression through expression. Devastated, guilty, confused. Oh, I was vexed. Why you? What did you ever do? Were you cursed? Were you hexed? You deserved a fair shot at your dreams too, didn't you? You were the rose that tried to grow and never made it through the concrete. I will never forget those sweet summers. I miss you. Thank you very much. I'm only going to do one more piece. So before I do that, I would ask that you take some time to go and check out the work that I'm doing specifically around women's rights and spoken activism. I like to use my art to speak truth to power. It's International Men's Day today, which is why I've chosen the two poems that I've chosen. I don't often perform these ones, but this next one is really important to me. I guess it's a special message for Cressida Dick, and it's called FTP. How would you feel if your son was illegally stopped and searched on a regular basis? How would you feel knowing that people walked by your innocent child and didn't say shit? How would you feel if your son was arrested on charges that were baseless? How would you feel if your son was illegally stopped and searched on the basis of his race, but if you call it, it's a card that you're not supposed to play, but they're playing with the life of your child like it's a game, but society keeps on telling you that it's perfectly okay? How would you feel? How would you feel if you were told to swallow that anger and be gracious? How would you feel if your son was mentally ill and guilty of no crime other than losing his mind, but was still treated like one of those black boys in hoodies that they demonize in the papers? How would you feel if that same son was restrained like an animal and threatened with a taser when he's already in cuffs and doesn't pose any danger? How would you feel? Because I feel sick to my stomach and my mouth is full of blood from biting on my tongue when I should be speaking up. I wrote this because I'm angry at the way we let the police discriminate against our children when there are laws they're supposed to keep. I wrote this because I'm sick of being told, not all please, when so many are complicit in the silence that they keep. Are you not your brother's keeper? I see you see, but do not speak. I see you stand and watch your brother beat a black boy till he bleeds. You claim that you're a good cop, that you care about the streets. But how can you be an angel if you support the devil's deeds? What kind of dick would insist that the police force is no longer institutionally racist? Cressida, it's been more than 20 years since McPherson. Aren't you the same person that in not so many words said it was hard to imagine a day when institutionalized racism was curbed? And now it's magically gone away. Please. Do you know how many times I've scrolled my timeline only to find black boys guilty of no crime being harassed by your thin blue line? So either you're being disingenuous or willfully blind. But I don't have time for your big white lies. It's easy to turn blind eyes when racism and police brutality isn't your reality. When the system in which we live continues to spoon feed racist mentalities, it's easy to deny my truth and maybe even feel a little bit mad at me for making you uncomfortable with words that will be over in a minute, when every minute of the day a black life is reminded why it still hasn't paid for its crimes against humanity. Fuck the system. Fuck your feelings and fuck formalities. And if you have to question why I'm questioning moralities, perhaps you need to think on what you've accepted as normality. Thank you very much. I've been Miss Yankee. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
EC, as always, you've blown everybody listening, everybody watching away. I don't doubt that they've already got a whole heap of things to think about. You feel me? Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for that.
Thanks for having me, sis.
I'm so honored that you would grace us with those words, and I look forward for us linking up and doing this again, no doubt.
Me too.
Fantastic evening. Go and break down the set again as you're about to do right now. Easie's on her way to go and wow a whole audience in a theatre somewhere in London, as she does. This is what she does, you know. It's just brilliant to have her with us. Thank you, EC. Next, we have rising star, award-winning Miss Curve, Miss Alchemy herself. This woman has just appeared on the poetry scene out of nowhere, as if she dropped by in a meteor and blew the whole place up. So I'll stop right there. I'm gonna let Alchemy do the talking from now. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Reid. You are too kind. Okay. Hi. I just want to say good evening, first of all, to everyone. I'm so honored to be here. I'm really happy to have had the opportunity to come and speak to you guys today, and hopefully you'll enjoy what I have to share with you. This poem was basically inspired by Dr. Carl Hart. He talks about people who use substances coming out, so to speak. And I just wanted to use this as an opportunity to speak my own truth, and hopefully you guys will enjoy. I am a writer. My pen is a fighter for social justice. I am a warrior. On the battlefield that is my mind, these words lay waste to demons of all kind. In this space, I need my sight to fight, but in order to fight, but try as hard as I might, I still feel blind. Sometimes smoking allows me to see with my mind. When dealing with a pain we can't avoid, we'll try anything to fill the void. When there's no washing out the stain, and the only way to really rise again without going completely insane is to find people, places, or things to hide behind. Or to carve out little rooms inside your mind that no one else knows how to find, and getting so comfortable that you don't even realize how unstable you've become this time. Feeling the walls are closing in and thinking there's no other being to whom you'd want to cling, and wanting to just be numb to that feeling. So numb that seeing is no longer believing, so numb that short of leaving this world that we live in, there is nothing more relieving than escaping that feeling. There is nothing more appealing. As you stare into the blankness of the sky, feeling your hurt intensify, seeing the world turn a blind eye, eyes that choose not to cry, faces that refuse to sigh. But when I'm high, I view new worlds with my mind's eye. I create a place where I know I can fly. If I leap, I know I won't die, and to survive, all I have to do is try. If I just spread my wings against the sky, I can truly verify the distance to the ground. But the only time my smile is replaced by a frown is when reality hits and I'm coming back down. Now, you can call that hallucination because it's not entirely of my creation. But as it mimics my perception, to me, it's a subconscious reflection of my reality. So really, that's just my imagination. And with a sprinkle of manifestation, anything imagined can be done. So I am a writer. My pen is a fighter for social justice. I am a warrior. I show the lives of the disenfranchised. I write to give a voice to their cries because honestly, it's such a bore. Honesty shouldn't be such a chore. But if history teaches us nothing more, we understand that hypocrisy exists galore, especially when it comes to minorities and the poor. The upper echelons of society don't experience this for sure. See, it really makes no sense to me that humans have been altering their reality since before the 1st century. Yet the government and their cronies decided to govern what it meant if we choose to use hallucinogens, when even the ancient civilizations dabbled in them. Scientists recently found drug residue in the hair of an Egyptian mummy. So I decided to have a little look-see. I flipped through the pages of history and surprisingly, it wasn't much of a mystery. There was no need to probe. I found clues all across the globe and frankly, it's actually quite funny to me. Allegedly, the Mayans drank their Coke in the form of a tea. I'm sure Alexa could find you a recipe. But speaking of tea, that reminds me of the Brits, the classic romantics. I am told these great English poets of old preferred their opioids to solid gold. They took more than a few hits. There was Keats, Wordsworth, Browning. I mean, it's actually pretty well known in the poetry scene. So let's go back even further. In the sub-Sahara, they say if you could make it past the nausea, mushrooms would actually make you smarter. Before there was a bike to ride or a car to drive in, they were expanding their psyche by ingesting psilocybin. Sure, that's one way to go for a spin. And yes, I know gossiping is a sin, but even in the Bible, you know that story of the burning bush? Rumor has it that Moses was burning the kush, but that might be a slight push. Okay, I'm only joking, but it's hardly surprising. Studies prove that fungal intelligence can increase human brain expansion. So you have to ask yourself the question, who benefits from dumbing down the population? Who told us to focus on addicts whilst ignoring the phenomenons that lead to addiction? Biopolitics is the art of creating the living dead. By making people feel so protected that they don't realize this protection materializes as subjugation. So the misconception about drugs and addiction, that must be by intention. It seems way more like a social invention to mislead a population. Otherwise, they would focus on education. They would focus on awareness and maybe even regulation. They would focus on representation or at least be prepared to have a genuine conversation. Dr. Carl Hart says misleading the public is a money-making thing. He says most drugs are banned because of racism, not pharmacology or any extensive study of the body. Those systemic pressures start to feel organic. They are that rising panic that grows and spreads like a virus in a pandemic. And crippled by the overwhelming dread of our resolves being terminated, fear becomes the monster lurking underneath every bed. As humanity morphs into the living dead, we struggle to move our bodies. We shuffle and scratch and we moan like zombies. We all destroy our communities, fighting for the next fix. Yet we watch transfixed as they put substance users on a crucifix. We look on as they take the blame for our dystopia. We look on as they are punished and shamed for having the audacity to seek their own utopia. We act like we can't understand why some people deny their right to be healthy for the opportunity to feel free, even if it's only temporary, even if it only exists in the fantasies built by the mind and its memories, even if in the eyes of society and their own families, they are nothing but criminals with a bunch of felonies. But what's more criminal is living in a place where love and care are so misplaced that people won't even look you in the face if you are not to their particular taste. What's more criminal is expecting those who are victims to their sobriety to rehabilitate into a broken society, a society so focused on its own piety that it lacks empathy. A society that just can't see the vast variety of ways that they alienate those asking for sympathy. A society so incapable of introspection, it refuses to change its outdated perception, so it forces the afflicted into isolation, whilst holding firmly on to the ideas they've always held about addiction. See, I believe addiction happens when there's a lack of human bonds. I think addiction is driven by yearning. It's driven by a stirring, a searching for that something we lack, where the body and the brain corresponds and fight back like heartburning, getting lost in a thought or an action or a substance. I wouldn't call myself an addict, even though my mother sees my use of cannabis as problematic. She says, "Why do you smoke?" I want to say, "Mom, being high is dope. I mean, but it's probably just the dopamine." So instead, I say, all journeys start off in the womb, though some never get a chance to bloom before their stories end up at the tomb. To them, life is but a waiting room, where elders cry gone too soon every time a young life dies, and youngest cry from night to noon when an elder returned to the skies. So my life is a journey only I can take, certain decisions only I can make. Society was supposed to be about community, and clearly that's not how it turned out to be. But to be alive is to be equal and free. As a child, this was never explained to me, but I found out that living is supposed to be having autonomy over my body. Being alive means having liberty, so living must mean having the power and the authority to choose who or what I want to be. And for me, that means nobody can choose my poison but me. Thank you. I've been Alchemy.
Lady, you are like chocolate to the ears of an activist. Like, Lord of his Moses, you told 1,000 stories in that one poem. And
Thank you.
so much of it I could relate to. So much of it I could relate to. You know, I can see you've done your due diligence, man. That poem, yeah, you know, the burning bush and Lord, there's so much to unpack, and we will talk about that later. But Jodie, thank you for joining us, and thank you for gracing us with that amazing piece. It was fabulous. Oh my goodness, that's what I mean. This woman, she just turns up, blows you away, and then disappears. And that's literally how she landed onto the poetry scene. And I saw that, and I had to pluck her and say, "Come over here, Jodie, and share this with us." She's fantastic. Right. So before we go to a short 5-minute break, I'm going to introduce a pillar of the poetry community here in the UK, another award-winning poet, educator, actor, activist, a hat-wearing lyricist. You know, don't even get me started. I'm going to start spitting poetry myself. Okay, Mr. Mark T. Thompson, one of my, and I mean, everyone here is a favorite poet of mine. And here is another one, the first of our Happy International Men's Day. Mark, please just do your thing. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. Just checking everyone can hear me at the back. Yeah, you at the back. Can you still hear me? I'm not sure if I can see the chat because of the way I've got it set up. But one of the things I like to do with online events is if you particularly like a piece, you know, in poetry events, we do this thing of clicking. Well, you can actually just type C's into the chat if you really like something. A small C for a click, or a capital C for a clap. And that kind of gives some feedback on what you've been enjoying. Another thing you can do is, if you really like a line, you'll probably have to wait for the next part because you probably won't like any of mine. But you can write the whole line that you like, or just a phrase, or just half a sentence that you particularly found exciting. These are the ways that we can engage as if we're in a room. And that gives us a kind of a bit more of a vibe, a bit more energy. So hopefully you're all doing that. But I've set it up so at the moment I can't be distracted by that. I've got 2 new poems that I have no idea exactly how long they're going to take. So I'm going to do those first. And that way I'll be able to segue only things that fit into whatever time remains. The first one was written specifically for tonight and is called My Daddy is a Rasta. My daddy is a Rasta, and he did what Rastas do. Tried to live his life with righteousness and to his word be true. But one day, a blazing fire began to burn inside his brain that laid low this conquering lion who tried not to complain when told that a blood clot had reduced his cerebral flow, and that now, how well he would recover, they didn't rightly know. But the one thing they were sure of is he had to kick his one nasty habit, that of smoking collie weed with cigarettes mixed in it. You see, while the ganja was illegal, the problem was the smokes. No jokes, cannabis doesn't create the kind of fatty deposits that chokes so many arteries and makes airways positively inefficient. Although the fags are legally imported and supplied, which is cognitively dissonant. Doesn't it seem odd that the deadly ones dealt legit while the other is deemed illicit? Well, as usual, growing at the root of many a wrong, guess what? You'll find a profit. It's true, tobacco's bottom line has lined too many a pretty casket, and we may need to dig up a very buried question before we can begin to ask it, which is, if smoking is so bad for us, why is it allowed? How can it be justified? Why are our politicians so cowed? Is it that Forest Cash buys the right to swing a deadly axe paid directly into sleazy parliamentary pockets and, of course, in tax? Okay. So say without the revenue smokers raise, our system has to change. Well, maybe we could further reduce harm by looking to arrange fewer custodial sentences for cannabis distribution, since the hidden cost of a war on drugs is the huge rise in detention with the ugly social ripples and wealth transfer that criminalization brings. When people's well-being is valued at less than the price of things like stocks and shares, or prison mongers like G4S, or the wages of their fat cats, securely prowling up and down the rampant markets in 200-pound bowler hats. Either both drugs should be legal, or both drugs should be banned. Our system makes no sense. It seems utterly unplanned, but what's clear to me regardless is change needs to come. And if you can't see, hear, I speak the truth. Brethren, it's you who must be dumb, as my daddy is a Rasta and he did what Rastas do. Like him, I try to live my life with righteousness and to my words be true. But he no longer smokes the poison wrapped in paper, card and cellophane. So that which once laid low a conquering lion won't lay him low again. Thank you. I'm sure the C's are going crazy in the chat at the moment. Just a quick one. I meant to explain before. Forest is a pressure group for smokers' rights, funded by big companies like British American Tobacco. And it stands for Freedom Organisation for the Right to Enjoy Smoking Tobacco. And it's been around since the 70s. And yeah, they give money to parliamentarians. Right, moving on. I want to do some more poems and not focus on sleaze. There are lots of different types of harm. This is one that's quite hard to measure, and it's blended with something else. It's called My Ends. I don't recognize my ends no more. I think I'm near home, but I'm not quite sure. That looks like the school where I used to go, but the name has changed, so I just don't know. I don't recognize my ends no more. So many new buildings with so many floors towering above me, they make my head spin. I just want to go home but don't know where to begin. I don't recognize my ends no more, but they hoorays and hipsters, they weren't here before. Converting their loft, extending into their basement. But how do we measure the impact of cultural displacement? I don't recognize my ends no more. But it seems like there's a near constant war for control of the air, the streets, the turf. Who can calculate what a community's skyline is worth? I don't recognize my ends no more. It's got so I'm scared to open my door. It's hard to admit how much I've forgot. But trust me when I say it must be a lot, because I don't recognize my ends no more. And I can barely bear the confusion that I now endure. Some call me mad. Doc says it's dementia. Now a trip to the corner shop is like a flipping adventure. No, I don't recognize my ends no more. Nor that stranger stood there that I used to adore. He claims that he is the son of my son. I humor him and his visit's soon done, and I don't recognize my ends no more. I think I'm near home, but I'm not quite sure. That looks like the school where I used to go, but the name has changed, so I just don't know. I don't recognize my ends no more. So many new buildings with so many floors towering above me, they make my head spin. I just want to go home. I just want to go home. I just want to go home, but don't know where to begin. And breathe. Yes. So mixture of gentrification and dementia. My grandma in the last year of her life didn't know who I was, and I was the first person that she forgot, which was hard. Still hard now. But yes, there's lots of different types of harm and lots of different ways we can be harmed, and lots of things that we don't think of as harming us that do. This is simply called We Didn't Want to Watch. Not all of my poems are the first line, but it's the title. But yeah, it seems to be a bit of a theme. We didn't want to watch, but this film cast the world as extras. No speaking role for us, just places on the sidewalk from where we could not talk, simply the silent witnesses to scenes that should not be seen. I said, simply the silent witnesses to scenes that should not be seen, but they were. And now we are all haunted by the breathless last of the life which passed beneath the knee. Oh, to be clear, we're all sure this has happened before, but this crime, we got to see. And this time, the guilt just could not be any clearer. And in that moment, we could not feel any nearer or any more powerless. And as the words of reason poured from round about us, we could tell that they fell on deaf ears. And as the darker amongst us saw our darkest fears, our ancestral mothers above us cried even more tears for yet another soul they would see too soon. But without doubt, what truly marked this out with a chalk line for change is how reason went unheard. Those that were there had spoken the words we would have spoken if they had been us. If we had had the chance to cuss two bad words in his defense, but in fact we know because their actions show all the words in the world would have made no impact on their indifference. This is why fists everywhere have been raised in defiance. Yes, raised in the air past many a tear-streaked cheek of those who now refuse to be so meek and mild. Man, our anger is wild, and like your shame, these words proclaim there's a chance our anger may never be tamed. But let me take a moment to breathe. Because that's one privilege that I still have. We've seen some try to shatter Malcolm and Dr. Martin's dreams under jackboots that wish to stomp on the green shoots that grow from the grassroots, who know these three words to be true: Black Lives Matter. As to what happens next, well, that's up to you. So, rioters, looters, back in the press this week. It was acceptable to call people rioters and looters, but not victims. Looters. just a quick one to explain at the beginning of this. There are some bits of the Parthenon which were taken by British people to the British Museum. I think it was sold. I've forgotten. Oh, it was a bloke called Elgin. Picked them up in Greece, took them back to Britain, and guess what? They're called the Elgin marbles because apparently in Britain, if you steal shit, you get to put your name on it. So the Elgin marbles are the Parthenon marbles that were stolen by a bloke called Elgin. When I talk about marbles, that's what I'm talking about. They say the Greeks have lost their marbles. Well, now they want them back. But it seems looting is only criminal if those looting are poor or black. And according to those who claim to be not all that far right, murder is only murder if you ain't a cop that's white. Yeah, they can kneel upon a jugular and not offend their mates, but to kneel sporting an afro can cause heated debates about respect for your country that can't respect my kin. Oh, it's the land of the free, unless you have black skin. So how can property be safe when the populace are not? When a brother cannot run without the fear of being shot by those whose very job it is to protect and watch their backs against the terrors and aggressions of white supremacist attacks. But how can they protect us as they scope us in their sights? How can they hope to serve us as they disregard our rights? The bricks and mortar are replaceable. Windows can be reglazed, but no earthbound soul can redraw the life that's been erased. So I'm sorry for your losses, but I just can't count their cost because I'm too busy writing eulogies for all the loved ones we have lost. They say the Greeks have lost their marbles. Well, now they want them back. But it seems looting is only criminal if those looting are poor or black. And I'm not going to take too long. I'm hoping you're loving these. You may or may not be. Sometimes we have to look back at traumas that are historic, that are multi-generational, and we have to try and make connections to the pain in order to understand where we are today. This is the seed of the fruit. This will be my last piece. What if these once shivering timbers could talk? Tell tales of those who once walked between them, the scenes they'd not so much seen as absorbed with the salt of the spray and the tears shed in the triangular trade in which so many souls were bought and sold, young and old alike, back in the days when the darker fruit of the tree of the humanity were just another commodity to be transported for an unfeasibly large profit on a disgracefully small fee. A fruit which, like any other, could so easily spoil once it was separated from the roots and the soil of the land where it had grown, from all it had ever loved, all it had ever known, imprisoned as much by the high seas as the tall ships from where the shores were not visible for weeks at a time, where hope disappeared beneath yards of sail and rope, dancing to the twin tunes of the whistle of the wind and the whip. There are so many more than 9 tales to be told, including those of the weak, the sick, and the unbreakably bold who could not be cowed between stern and bow and rebelled somehow despite the shackles. Some argue those warriors, brothers, mothers, and others who never made the journey's end were in fact the lucky ones, but there were no winners here in the squalor between the decks. For most, just unending fear and punishment for the crime of not dying. But that's a lie. For some, this gamble paid off royally, building fortunes, cities, even empires, including ours, those of Spain, Portugal, and the Dutch, all of which owed as much to the unutterably unholy sales of not just the flesh present, but the generations to come. I wonder what my ancestors on board would have made of me. Seed of the fruit of the 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 tree of which they are the root. Perhaps one day I'll ask them. But until then, I'd ask you to remember them and to join the dots in the chain that link us all. I've overrun by 30 seconds. I do apologize. I'm a stickler for timekeeping.
No. I will not accept your apology. There's no need to apologize. The 30 seconds was worth it. And everybody in the chat rooms is going crazy for every form. But Mark, I've just been on the most amazing roller coaster. And I always know, like, you know, we've worked together so many times. I always know you bring the fire, but you never fail to get me in my feelings. Never. I've had eye juice coming out and everything. It's been amazing. Thank you so much, Mark,
Well,
for
you
doing
give me 15 minutes. I try and get 18 minutes into that 15.
you
And I
do
nearly
that.
did it.
You did it. You did it. Thank you so much, Mark. He was spectacular as always. Cheers. Thanks a lot. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so so far you've heard EC, Miss Yankee. You have heard Alchemy. You have just heard Mr. Mark T. Thompson. We're going to go away for a short 5-minute break. So go and get some water, hydrate. You know, go to the bathroom, go and munch some chocolate, some cookies, you know, get your comfort food out, because the second half promises to be amazing. Next up, we have Kat Francois, we have David Lee Morgan, and to close, you have me, Red Medusa. We will be back on the other side in 5 minutes. Be with us at 7:45 when we will resume Bright Stars and Dark Skies. Thank you very much. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Bright Stars, Dark Skies. You are with me, Red Medusa. We have just heard 3 formidable poets. If you missed it, you missed out. But if you've just joined us, you're about to hear 3 more. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce an amazing, amazing woman, another pillar of British poetry, the first person in the UK to win a televised BBC Poetry Slam. She is an actor, she is an educator, she is a playwright, she is a performance artist, she is a motherfucking phenomenon. This is Miss Kat Francis. Go ahead, Kat, do your thing.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Good evening, good evening, good evening. My name is Kat Francois. Wonderful to be with you tonight. I'm just going to get on with it and share a number of different pieces with you today. The first piece is called These Lips. These lips are thick lips, plump as blue-black plum lips. They are not shy lips. They protrude unruly from my face, rebellious and full of catwalk attitude. My lips are as loud as a roaring concord. They do not know how to be quiet. They do not know how to sink absent farther into the background. They are not invisible lips. They are not as flat as an A cup, as flat as a doily, as flat as freshly straightened hair, a pulse, or a forgotten can of open coke. These lips are not as thin as curtain netting, ears, clouds, patience, or panty liners. They are absolutely beautiful, defiant, and unbreakable. But since childhood, these lips have been ridiculed, laughed at, and torn apart. Society does not accept these lips when they're attached to a black face like mine, but they are upheld when they sit on lighter, whiter, brighter Kardashian and Angelina Jolie's skin. But my lips ignore the lip-hating bullshit, the race-baiting. My lips are unapologetic. They will not be enslaved. Chains cannot close these lips. Needles cannot stitch these lips. And glue cannot stick these lips. My lips are two divas with no shame. Sexy and burlesque, glittering and sparkly. These lips cannot be held responsible for any intimidation they may cause, for they are answerable to no one. They are fabulous pillows of puffy perfection, kissable clouds of abundance. These lips are undefeatable. They will not be kept shut. Do not tell them not to breathe a word. Do not tell them not to give the game away. Do not tell them not to keep anything underneath their hat or keep their card close to their chest, for they will not comply, for they refuse to be perpetually down in the mouth or constantly pissed off. They will not be ignored. They are here to stay. They are ample, buxom, curvaceous, deliciously enviable, full-figured and well-formed, and these lips cannot be tamed. They cannot be constantly pushed to the back of the bus. They cannot be imprisoned. They cannot all be shut away in solitary confinement, assassinated and whipped, strangled, suffocated, or silenced. They cannot all be shot as their teenage hands hold onto a packet of Skittles, or shot as their 12-year-old fingers wrap around a toy gun. Neither will they be killed on a New York street as they sell cigarettes, nor will they be found dead in a British prison cell, nor will they suffer from positional asphyxiation whilst they're being restrained in a mental hospital, nor will they be gunned down on the streets while sitting in a car by British police. They have survived far worse than an online slaughter or a virtual hanging, and there are way too many of these thick black lips for us all to be silenced. This piece is called I Am the Child. I am the child. I am his stepchild. I am the 2 out of 7 child. I am the child who watched her mother beaten. I am the child who listened as arguments tornadoed through the house. I am the child who hid with her siblings in her bedroom. I am the child who learned that relationships can be a dangerous place, a boat that violently rocks then sinks, a turbulent plane that tumbles like a rock from the sky, that a smile can quickly turn into a frown, a whisper into a scream, a push into a slap, a smirk into a snarl, a question into an accusation. I am that child that jumped at the loud boom of his deep voice. I am the child who called him the beast. I am the child filled with rage, counting from 1 to 10. I am the child who tried to keep out the beast way. I am the child who learnt to swallow her feelings. I am the child who kept her placid mask on her face, but underneath the surface of her skin was boiling lava. I am the child who tiptoed around the beast, listening out for his footsteps. I am the child who found sanctity in a locked bathroom. I am the child who listened to her mother's woes. I am the child who sat anxious as the tension built, then exploded like a fireball. I am the child who knew my house was different to her friend's house. I am the child who held hate in her stomach like a tight ball of rubber bands. I am the child who dreamt of poisoning the beast. I am the child that dreamt of the beast falling down the stairs and breaking his beastly neck. I am the child who dreamt of a dream dad. A nice, kind, gentle dad with a soft voice and soft hands, loving words which hugged and stroked and held a child close. A dad who happily attended school days and parents' evening. A dad who held your hand in public, taught you how to ride a bike and how to swim, wiped your tears and eagerly read bedtime stories in exciting and silly voices. I am the child who left the room as soon as the beast entered. I am the child who worried about when or how to say good evening or good morning and only receive a grunt of acknowledgement in reply. I am the child who was slapped in the face so hard the swollen mark of the beast's large hand would be left for hours. I am the child who was forced to choose the belt she was beaten with. I am the child who was pinched and pushed. I am the child who was bruised and berated. I am the child who was controlled and criticized. I am the child who grew to hate the beast. The child who eventually talked back. The child who would try and stick up for herself and her siblings but would always lose. The child who lived in the middle of a strategic war game. The child who refused to cry no matter how hard she was hit. The child who kept this secret. The child who hid the truth. The child who told no one. The child who eventually grew older, too old to beat, too old to bully, too old to scare. The child who ran out of the house and called the police after he attacked her mother one more time. The child who stood at the door as the beast tried to return that very night. The child who asked her mother, "Do you want him back?" The child who slammed the door in the face of the beast when her mother said no. I am that child. It's hard to hold on when all the sunshine is gone. When the joy has been drained and the pain refuses to fade and your body shuts down as it struggles to decipher the world's tirade, and we seek solace, and we seek solace, and we seek solace in things that desensitize and euphanize. And we try and hide the pain inside, smother it in smiles and falsified cries, and it slowly seeps from tired eyes, slowly secretes from sweated skin, skin burning from heat an ugly fire rampaging within, and anxiety grips and beats like a wielded stick, chokes and suffocates till the space to breathe is a fight for life and not just a need. For the truth is tongue-tied and the truth is blind. We kidnap our own emotions, refuse them the light of day, keep them rat-caged inside our terrified chests until they cannot express, until they cannot confess. The truth has lost its way, turned left when it should have turned right, gone up when it should have gone down, putrid and sick. The truth is drowning, 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 drowning in its own rotten skin, withered and thin, full of regret and earthly sin. We walk around for days, weeks, months and years, ignoring the status quo. Disconnecting our mind from the system so we don't have to think, so we don't have to feel, and we complete ignorance to anything but our own sufferance. So we scroll past broken cities, we scroll past refugees' bodies, we scroll past teen stabbings, we scroll past black bodies condemned to eternal silence by police officers both trigger happy and tetchy. We scroll past our own humanity, hidden in Facebook and Twitter statuses, 140 characters, pictures, selfies and memes. We sell our soul to the highest online bidder. Yet 30 pieces of silver we do not receive because Jesus we do not have to deliver. We have become spineless, spiritless, voiceless, unaware that we all suffer from post-traumatic stress. Images stored in the back of our brain will come back to haunt us at a later date. None of us are untouchable. None of us are protected by some invisible first world bubble. We all stink of privilege and superiority. No one is free. Not one of us will be found not guilty because we all own way too many possessions. We all have way more than we need, but still we are unsatisfied, unhappy and depressed as our pathetic souls beg and beg to be fed and fed. So we Coventry our inner child, feed our now, fail to satisfy our tomorrow. We have lost our way. Lost ourselves, lost our humanity, lost our innocence, lost our beauty. We can no longer even bear to witness our own reflection. So we constantly filter what we see. There are so many choices and not just one solution. And there's no escape from this monopoly board of life as we work bored and burdened within this physical form as debauchery and cruelty become the norm. For the truth is tongue-tied and the truth is blind. The truth is tongue-tied and the truth is blind. We kidnap our own emotions, refuse them the light of day, keep them rat-caged inside our terrified chests until they cannot express, until they cannot confess. The truth has lost its way, turned left when it should have turned right, gone up when it should have gone down, putrid and sick. The truth is drowning, 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 drowning in its own rotten skin, withered and thin, full of regret and earthly sin. And we seek solace, and we seek solace, and we seek solace. And hopefully I'm all right for time. Someone let me know. The last time. It's called Black Rage. Sometimes you need to listen to some Black Rage, even if you don't want to, even if it hurts, even if it makes you want to scream and shout and say it wasn't me, even if it makes you feel tied up and awkward. Sometimes you just have to sit down, shut up and listen to the pain, listen to the anguish, listen to the grief. Jump off the pulpit you have become accustomed to preaching to all of us on. Step off the soapbox and pause. You see, white noise is loud, overbearing, and arrogant, constantly running in the background, a rambling commentary that never ends. It's easy for you to turn your back and block the blackness out. Create a sound barrier between the black voice so it cannot break through. You on one side, blackness on the other. You eat our food, dance to our music, appropriate our culture, and when you have had your fill, you discard us like a piece of litter. If only we could do the same. But we cannot put our blackness to one side, like a shedding snake, and climb out fresh, white and new. We cannot remove, rub off, wash away our black features when it all becomes too difficult to deal with. We cannot switch off the black channel, or better still, turn the black channel off. We cannot wake up one day, fed up and exhausted, and refuse to deal with our blackness. You know what? Today, I want peace and safety. I want to be treated like a human being, so I am not going to be black. No. When we wake up in the morning and lay our heads down at night to sleep, we are black. Every time we look in the mirror, we are black. Every time we step out of the house, we are black. Every time we apply for college, university, a bank loan, we are black. Every time we go for an interview, we are black. Every time we have an encounter with the police, we are definitely black, 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 black. Every time we are forced to deal with Karens and Beckys and Johns and Stephen, we are black. There is no relief from this targeted skin. There are no sick days, no weekends off, no holidays, no days to carry over until next year while we garner more strength. So sometimes you just have to listen. Shut the hell up and listen. Take it, swallow it, man up, woman up, them up, accept it. That the only way to learn a little bit of the black experience, black anger, black pain, and black hopes, black desires, black passions, black past and black futures, to shut the hell up and listen to some black rage. Button up your thin lips and listen to some black rage. Put down your prejudice and racist thinking, misplaced liberalism for a minute, and listen to some black rage. Sit in the uncomfortable and listen to some black rage, because even if you have a black friend, black partner, black child, black colleague, even if you bought yourself a pair of thick black lips, buttocks or thighs, you still need to listen. Listen to the brutal stories of Black Death, Sean Rigg, Ricky Bishop, Christopher Alder, Joy Gardner, Smiley Culture, Sarah Reid, Cynthia Garrett, Cherry Jose, Leon Patterson, Kevin Clark, Sheku Bayo, Lisani Lewis, Rashawn Charles, and much, much more. Listen to their families call for justice, justice that has yet to come and may never come, because as long as the world accepts or ignores racism, there will always be black rage to deal with. It's a choice as to whether you hear it or whether you feel it. Black rage is ugly. Black rage is spit at the corner of your mouth. Black rage is fire. Black rage is angry, ugly, crying. Black rage is hate. Black rage is a lifeless body. Black rage is a modern day strange fruit. It's an arm around the neck, a bullet in the back, a knee in your back. Black rage is pain. Black rage is despair. Black rage is a loss of hope. Black rage is a constant injustice. It is a grief so profound it is unrecoverable. It's the lack of light at the end of the tunnel. Black rage cannot be packaged or sanitized. If you really listen, it will sicken you. It will shame you, scare you, call your actions into account and your privilege into account. It will choke you. Black rage will make you feel as if you cannot breathe. That's it. I'm done.
I don't know what to say. I could say so many things right now to Kat and about Kat, but I think Kat has just spoken for herself. I don't think there's anything more to add to that other than thank you. So we're going to move on to a brother, a good friend of mine, another award-winning poet, an activist and voice for the disenfranchised, someone that I have loved from the moment I heard him. And we're going to join a Mr. David Lee Morgan. Go ahead, David.
Hello, everyone. I'm so honored to be asked to perform with these poets that I know and respect and cherish. So I'm going to do 4 poems. The first 2 are overtly political and very idealistic. The second 2 are more, they're about abuse and are much darker. So the first poem is called Don't Stay in Your Lane. 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 Don't. Not even if you're a cis, white, male, able-bodied, heterosexual, middle-class, young and beautiful. Don't stay in your lane. Don't. Not even if you're too dumb to understand just how privileged you are. Better to speak up and get your ass kicked than stay stupid forever. Don't stay in your lane. Don't. Solidarity is not a, yes, darling, whatever you want. You got to put your head on the chopping block. Privilege is an obligation. Privilege gives you power. What are you going to do with it? Lie back and enjoy, or try to make a better world? True, privilege can blind you. It can give you a voice when the only choice you should be making is to shut up and listen. But sooner or later, you have to come to your own decision. What are you fighting for? Don't stay in your lane. Don't. Oppression is real. It tears you up. But sometimes injustice and cruelty can be a kind of high-octane fuel. You can become incandescent. The damage remains, hidden in dark caves, and we can be blind in places we don't even know exist. But we are training each other to be warriors. Our superpower is that we can see with more than our own two eyes. I can see with your eyes. You can see with mine. Don't stay in your lane. Don't. Revolution is not you fight your corner, I fight mine. We must all be on the same side. In the war against injustice, we are not parallel streams. We are one mighty river, or we are nothing. Don't stay in your lane. Don't. What is to be done? The revolution will not come until it has pierced your heart. Until every cruelty and injustice, no matter who it is done to, feels as if it were done to you. Until you are naked, open wide, wounded by every homeless cry, a mother to every hungry child, a native son to every tribe, stranded in the forest flame, swallowing smoke and tears of rage, running from the thunder of a helicopter gun. The revolution will not come. Until your back aches and the sun bakes you and the pain breaks you, until every minute of your life hurts and the ripe fruit falls down into the dirt because your fingers and your bones and your brain are numb. The revolution will not come. Until every cop car is looking for you, for what you are, not what you do, and you stand on the earth branded by the wrong accent, the wrong color skin, the wrong sexuality, the wrong mother tongue, too fat, too thin, too old, too young. The revolution will not come. Until you walk the street bearing unwanted seed, condemned to breed by men who call you girl and think they bloody own the world. Until you stare up into the hate-filled face of a rapist, when you can smell his breath, taste the rancid kiss, when your stomach twists in anger and disgust, when you can feel all this as if it were done to you. It's not enough. Because the revolution will not come until it has made you wise. So what if you hate injustice? So what if you're willing to die to make a change? It's not enough to be brave, not even enough to love unless love leads to wisdom when push comes to shove. So you learn to read books and faces. You study what gender and race is. You look at science and the economy, at every class and group in society. You study the past, but you don't live in it. You don't worship it. You don't pick through the rubble for a lost God to believe in. You read history not with a branding iron, but a blowtorch. You are not a king. You are not a priest. You are not singing in the bloody choir. You are the fire that burns through history. Your genealogy is written in the ashes of burnout villages, crucified slaves, weavers chained to their looms, heretics burned at the stake, screaming out the truth. How many thousands of years of fighting each other over the never enough, one class after another rising to the top and beating back down everyone else with laws and religion and bullets when you don't listen. How many thousands of years of system after system and always the same fundamental division. You work, they rule. But you are more than just a talking tool. Let the revolution be your school. Study the connections and you begin to see the chains of slavery are chains of power too. They connect you to an army of the dispossessed. And it's an army you will need, because the revolution will not come until it has made you strong. Power is a good thing. Try living without it. But without a doubt, it divides into two. The power to win is the power to lose. Power is nothing but the power to choose. It's only as good as how you use it. But never forget, you are not begging for mercy. You are fighting for power. How will you break free of the ingrained habits of a lifetime? How will you gain control of your own minds? How will you bring it together to set off a chain reaction? And if you win, how will you fight off the armies that come to crush you? And if you win, how will you feed the world? And if you win, how will you carry through? How will you free the world? Be leaders who know how to be led. Be teachers who know how to be taught. Revolution is a war that has to be fought. They've got the guns and the weapons of mass communication. You've got the power to the people that comes with organization. You've got the power to the people, but you better believe they hate it. If you give them a chance, they'll break it. You know, it's only as good as you make it. You got the power to the people. Are you ready to take it? Okay, this is the second two. Sorry. The first one's very short. Pole dance. I saw you draped around the pole, a long, thin phallus from ceiling to floor, from life to death. This can't be right, I said. It has no crossbeam. How can they nail you to it? But they did. You were so beautiful. Your blood as red as lipstick. When you cried out, I tried to pull you down, but my hands were full. I was holding the nails. Monster. He's back, she tells me, and I believe her. I can almost see him there in the empty corner. He knows, she says. He knows me and he hates me. He knows what a dirty little slut I am. You're not. I am. You're not. I am. He knows. And nothing I can say or do, no matter how I hold her close. The shaking goes on through the night, and the hot tears burn my shoulder as I stare at the empty corner with a hate so pure and bright, so hard and deep that I can more than see him. I can smell and feel him, and I close my hands to choke him. I can almost feel his throat, but then my grip is broken, and he's out through the open window, and we're running, crashing, diving through the streets and alleys, past a young girl on her knees, neon lights and moonlit trees, through the blood and gore of a mother and her daughter torn to pieces by a mountain stream, all the bloated white bodies floating down the green river, and I can hear a child wailing, or is it a siren screaming? Looking for business? Want a date? She was gagging for it. I deserve it. Shampoo and movie stars, opera house and grubby bars, and I can hear the cars buzzing around us like flies, crawling around us like cockroaches, the percussion of bones crunching under our feet. I look into a corpse's staring eyes, and I'm wishing I were deaf and blind, but I've got to get to him before he finds her. Closer, closer, and my heart gets colder, colder. Murder, murder, I am death, and when he stumbles, I'm on him like stink on sin. My hands around his throat, my fingers pushing into the windpipe, into the air supply. Look at me and die. Look at me, and he does. And the eyes are mine. My eyes, my face, my mouth, my lips, my tongue. This is wrong. I'm not a rapist. I never raised my hand. But I hear the blood pounding in my ears to the beat of a disco band, and a terrible music roars and a harsh whisper sneers. I know exactly what you mean. It's only a magazine. Or maybe a topless peep show, a touch on a subway packed in close so nobody knows. A click of the mouse and anything goes. Video link to a video blowjob. What did you think? Are you really that dumb? Where do you guess those photos come from? You're not a monster. No, you never raised your hand. You never did the dance, but you played in the band. Then the music stops. I'm back in the room with you in my arms again. I love you so much, and I hate everything that was done to you. But now it's hatred mixed with shame. I know the monster's name. I close my eyes, for I can't bear to see you. He's back, you tell me. And I believe you. Thank you. That's it.
That is more than it, David. That was everything. And thank you so much for pushing through this chesty illness, that you kindly advised me to, in tackling. David, you always rock my world. You always paint the most vivid pictures, and you always move me from where I'm seated to somewhere else. And I can't think of anybody else that does poetry the way that you do. You're a one-off. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Whew. Deep breath, deep breath. So I hope everybody's enjoyed what they've heard so far, what they've heard this evening. I hope that you've all been moved and rocked, you've all cried, you've all laughed, you've all shivered. I mean, I feel like I've been through every single emotion available on the spectrum, and then some further out. So we come to my section, and I've got, if I've got time, I've got 3 pieces, possibly 4, that I would love to share with you. I've written something special for today. I started it 10 years ago. It is personal. It is all true. Everything you're about to hear next is true. I did all of that, everything. So I'm just going to crack on. And before I start, thank you all for staying with us and joining us and learning with us and learning from us. Thank you. And this poem is called Little Green Friend. It suppressed my aggression, my anger and depression, making a dark world disappear into puffs of sweet green smoke. Painful childhood memories of the need for a mother's love, a father's hugs, and not fully being able to comprehend who and what I was were expelled with every exhalation, temporarily smudged out of my mind, though my heart is still burdened by the hurt my family denied. Bags and bags and bags of escapism supplied by 100 different dealers. Though I never bought the weed they sold, I purchased a fleeting freedom. A moment of sometimes creative peace, or minutes of meaningless laughter followed by a heavy, dreamless sleep. In love with the substance that helped me to forget those things that torment me, smoking to free my mind of stress, to halt the raging waves behind my eyes, to allow myself a moment of wanton, careless selfishness, where I could abandon the body that anchored me to this painful existence and exchange it for an emotionless daydream, blending into the beige of my smoker's corner, not able to comprehend the depth of the feelings I was swimming in, drowning in an ocean of unaddressed trauma, my smokescreen providing me with the shelter I'd looked for my whole life. But it was always temporary. Highs plunged into new lows. Every other night I'd walk to the closest payphone the moment my benefit check came in, usually at about 1 o'clock in the morning, and with every ring of the line I'd grow impatient until he answered. Then I'd be up like a wired insomniac waiting for the doorbell to ring, becoming less fussed about whether the dealer would bring buds or dust, as long as he bought me something. It wouldn't matter that I hadn't eaten in a week, because nothing made me feel weaker than having to feel everything. I just wanted to breathe without crying, to be without trying, and smoking weed provided me with the opportunity to not care, allowing me to just sit there. Believe me when I say it's a space that's hard to leave, and it calls you back whenever the world gets too heavy. I mean, all you have to do is roll up, light up, kick back, and be swept away into a purple haze where you could float on clouds of smoke for days until you're gently washed up onto reality's stony beaches, hungry alone and depleted, wanting once more to go offshore. It's the most toxic of relationships, and yet to it I always return. To the familiar smell of burning herbs and Rizzler papers, that comforting sting on the back of the throat, and then the calm before the storm every addict knows approaches. I take it right down to the roach every time, hoping this time will be my last. But my past won't leave me alone, and this crazy world has never felt like home. So for as long as I have to wear a mask, this beautiful visual lie that convinces everybody that I'm just fine, I'll stay lit, craving freedom, bent on lightness, devoted to ignorance and to bliss, hooked on creative expression and color and the deepest of sleep, until poverty and injustice no longer dictate the terms of my life, and this life grants me permission to live. I'll use, because it provides me with the love my parents neglected to give. I enjoy feeling its calm settle my shattered nerves and dreams, which in my peace I reimagine and channel through my poetry. I feel the ganja flow through me. I feel the anger go quickly. The prickly bitness of my disappointment in society becomes but a distant memory. And in that second, there is clarity. In that second, I am fully me. Prison is worth the risk if I can escape my unhappiness for a little bit, to witness my inner scenery change from the sooty grey of a British winter to the candy floss pink of bloom of the cherry tree. And if I had been given half the chance and opportunities my peers had in their adolescence, My adulthood wouldn't look like a deadly dance between lung cancer and encroaching criminality. Weed wouldn't be the key to the gateway of my sanity, and I wouldn't be locked into this relentless cycle of dependency on a little green friend I met on the stairs in my estate at 14, who stood by me through my losses, wins, clean into my 30s. Maybe I'll get clean in my 40s, but I like this so-called dirty habit. So there you have it, my truth. The reasons behind my problematic use, and if I gave it up, I'd give it up and I wouldn't be here talking to you. I'll continue to purchase that fleeting freedom because nothing makes me feel weaker than feeling everything. This substance saves my soul from torment, and this poem is my proof. Thank you. All real, all true. Yeah, we've all got our dependencies, we've all got our ways of coping, and that has been mine for a very long time. Off and on, off and on, off and on. It is what it is. Okay. I've been flitting around with ideas around what to perform next, and you know, I've described myself as a scholar, so I'm going to touch on something around education. And this poem is called Roman Numerals, and it goes like this. And excuse me, I'm reading. I've been very unwell, so I haven't been able to recite, but here we go. Why did you teach me Roman numerals? And why is my son still learning them today? What use are they in addressing institutional and structural racism? These are the questions that came to mind when he came home from school. You also teach respectability, you enforce it. Before long, you'll demand that he cuts his locks, citing tidiness and policy. And you'll tell my daughter that she wears too many colors in her hair, ignoring her culture and spirituality. And that uniform they all must wear suggests the children are seen and treated equally. But it's not the hair or the clothes that's problematic. You see my son's blackness as a threat. My daughter's authority as attitude and rudeness. They are not seen in the same way their white contemporaries, as their white contemporaries. But as adversaries, future criminals, gang members, baby mothers, drug dealers, and bums. Never in your schools have I seen Black excellence celebrated, except maybe once a year in October, when discolored display boards show tired images of Dr. Martin Luther King, and Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, and present-day stars are athletics, singers, and entertainers. But our history is bigger than the rights we had to fight for, and bigger than the stadiums we sell out. Our history began before the transatlantic genocide and is greater than the history of those Romans you teach our babies about decade after decade. You have assigned our young to a hellish purgatory where the power of your whiteness collides and merges with your fear of blackness to birth victimized Black children, babies who blame themselves for their skin, for the hate you give, who experience a hopelessness your privilege protects you from. And rather than choosing to confront the consequences of this generational imbalance of power or examine the roots of your unconscious bias, you rid your vision of the sight of our children, excluding them at 3 times the rate of their white peers, returning them to a home that's 3 times more likely to be impoverished, regulating them to be uneducated adults, now 9 times more likely to be imprisoned. And you may say that you bear no responsibility for who they become. And you cannot help the way the system is run, but you would be lying, because it starts within these school walls, where Black and white children are given or denied the education and tools they will need to change the world that they see when they leave. The cycles of racist attitudes and behaviors are allowed to continue when white children see white teachers discipline Black children disproportionately, and though it's never said out loud, the children know why. All of them. I knew it. And you teach them that this is normal as readily as you teach those Roman numerals, that the world is naturally exclusionary, that they are naturally divergent, and that white is pure and Black is bad, that white is superior and Black inferior. We see it in your hierarchy of teachers and learning assistants. We see it in the lack of Black headmistresses. We see it when you overlook our autistic daughters. We see it when you tell our sons to take off their hoodies. We see it when we speak patois and are reprimanded for speaking slang. We see it in the heavy-handedness of your punishments. We see it when you relate our laments and raps to gangs. We see it in the lack of Black figures in textbooks. We see and feel this, and yet we are gaslit into believing our children are the problem. And knowing all of this, we are forced to give you charge over our most precious gifts, though you send them back broken and torn, so damaged that sometimes they don't come back at all. School isn't meant to be dangerous, or an extension of the colony, or prison or mortuary. We don't send them to you for cultural lobotomies, for the erasure of their identities in favor of a whitewashed worldview. What we expect for you to do is tell them the truth about everything, especially the parts that make you uncomfortable, those parts of history that present that and present that you would rather not think about, because to you it's inconvenient or laden with guilt or might make the children angry. Instead, you lean upon that inconvenient truth. It's not on the curriculum. Thank you. Okay, thank you. I hope, yeah, those who feel it know it, right? Okay, so I think I've got time to do 2 more. So if that's okay with everyone listening, I'm going to do that. And on the back of the most beautifully presented poem that we heard Kat share earlier, I'm going to do a poem I wrote called Black Women Matter, mainly because Black women are the most overlooked demographic in the world. Bear with me. Okay. Sleep has been reserved for the dead. Every breath a deep sigh forced out of a tight chest. I can't breathe. This can't be. I can't even sleep in my own bed for fear of being shot dead. And I didn't resist arrest, but they'll say I did. They'll say I did drugs and neglected my kids. They'll spit on my character and dance on my grave, post an angry picture of my face and shout, "All lives matter!" while my sisters scream, "Say her name!" That undercover clan member will get away with murder. That undercover fed will surely kill again. Next time in a police cell, a rape, a beating, a hanging, it'll be a suicide. Unable to drive a vehicle with a broken taillight, and upon confrontation, I put up a fight. Of course I had it coming. How dare I challenge a white man? How dare I look him in the eye? How dare I show him that I am not afraid? They'll say I had too much attitude and no respect for law and order. I was insubordinate. I was strong. I was uncontrollable. I had a mental health disorder. Imagine if I did. Imagine how quickly I'd be picked up, tasered, restrained, locked up and locked in with rapists in uniform, left for dead, found cold on the floor in the morning, as if I was nothing, as if I never existed. A brief mention in the news of some girl called Brianna, Sarah, Sandra. Maybe a protest once they suffocated another one of my brothers. Maybe I'll be a hashtag buried in a million tweets about him. Maybe my murder will be relevant for a short time at least, before this beast goes after my daughter, my sister, my cousin, my mother, my niece, another Black woman made invisible in life and in death. Another Black woman pushed into the background. Will I be her? Will they rage and riot and burn that beast to its bones? Will they check on my children now that they are alone? Will they say my name when I'm framed as a terrorist? Will they speak truth to power when lies are spat from my killer's lips? Will my brothers storm the buildings and paint the streets red? Will the only time I matter be when I am dead? Will the only time I mattered be when I am dead? Okay. Okay, and that is Black Women Matter. Now, I'm going to share a final poem. This poem, I know it's International Men's Day. Personally, I don't think International Men's Day is needed. However, that's my opinion. I'm going to finish with a poem called These Hands. This poem is dedicated to all the women that have lifted me up, to all the women that lift other women up. Jennifer, I'm talking to you. Kat Francois, I'm talking to you. Jodie, I'm talking to you. Isi, I'm talking to you. Maddie, I'm talking to you. Neve, I'm talking to you. Colleen, I'm talking to you. Isi, everybody, I'm talking to you. Thank you for lifting me up, and thank you for doing the work, and thank you for being there for each other. And These Hands goes like this. I have opened my eyes many times to find myself face down in the dirt, unable to summon the strength to pick myself up. Not even the gods could have raised me from the dead. In fact, they had left me there to rot. There have been many times when my mouth could not open, sound could not escape, and my cries for help were silent screams echoing in the darkness, and my body had married the mud it lay in. and waited to be digested and absorbed back into the womb of the earth. But right before I had submitted to the calls of my angels and the joy of my demons, hands held my wrists, waist, neck, back, head, and feet, lifting me out of the grave I had dug for myself and propelling me into the warmth of a midday sun. And that warmth warmed those hands which wiped my eyes, clearing my vision so I could see my path ahead. They placed me in healing waters, removing life's heavy debris with salt and flame, making my spirit balanced and whole again. They stood me in the four winds to remind me that to feel was to live. And once I was dry and breathing again, naked and reborn, these hands draped me in white cloth, clothing me with the wisdom of sages, adorning my ears with gems buried in the minds of the ancients who had come and gone before I was being put together again. Made whole and fed with knowledge, these hands placed swords in my palm and taught me to fight against the world that sought to leave me in that mud. They gave me back my voice by speaking life into my soul. They fixed my crown, weaving gold thread into my locks, reminding me of my connection to the divine and to every hand who has reached out and placed their hands in mine. Those hands who had saved my life over and 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 over again were the hands of sisters, daughters, aunts and cousins, maidens, mothers and crones. They were the hands of artists and warriors, survivors and diviners, magicians, musicians, healers and dealers. They are queens and witches, femmes and bitches, queers and whores, white and black, whole and cracked, strangers, neighbors and friends. They are the daughters of the earth, and they were the hands of women. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you so much for listening. I'd like to give a huge thanks for the artists that joined us and joined me in creating this amazing lineup, amazing show for Harm Reduction International. Thank you for having us. Thank you to Lucy. Thank you to Nigel for inviting us on board. Huge thanks to Alchemy, EC, Miss Yankee, to Mark Thompson, to Cap Francois, to David Lee Morgan, and of course, I must thank myself. You have been with Red Medusa. Wishing you all a fantastic evening. All of the websites and links to the artists should be posted up on the website after this show. So feel free to go online and watch this back 100 times and, you know, click the links, listen to the artists. They have so much more to say than you've heard this evening. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the festival. It's packed full of good stuff. Have a lovely evening, and I have been Red Medusa. This has been Bright Stars, Dark Skies. Thank you.